Hey guys, Dr. Joel back here for part two. We're talking about SIBO, SIFO. In part one, we talked about basically what was going on there, what causes it, and really the main things that you have to look out for as far as things that are going to make this issue worse. So here in part two, we're going to jump into basically how to address these issues, how to address your SIBO and or SIFO, and really allow your gut and digestive system to truly heal so you can get away from these issues and have a stronger and healthier digestive system and gut than you've ever had before. So here we go. So reversing SIBO, SIFO, there's a couple different things that are extremely important. So I would say number one, obviously it's important to know if it's bacterial or fungal. That's pretty straightforward because when we look at that, then we're going to decide and understand what herbs we need. Guys, whenever we're addressing infections, in my strong opinion, you always want to use herbal supplements, but you always have to be extremely, extremely careful with the herbal supplements because herbal supplements, just like they can be beneficial for you, they can also be harmful. So when you look at these different things, for example, let's say you're able to understand that it's and kind of diagnose that it's bacterial versus fungal, and we'll talk about how to do that here in a second. You're going to look at these antibacterial herbs. Now there's about 25 plus different herbs in relationship here to the bacteria. There's also about 25 to 30 different antifungal herbs that you might use. And so I've got a huge list of them that I check in the office for my patients. And usually with these types of infections, people are going to either need one very specific herb or two that are working synergistically. And when I test through these herbs with the technique that I do, we're always able to pinpoint exactly which one it is or which two are needed. Now, when that's the case, since there is usually only going to be one or two that's really, really going to work, none of the other ones will work. And that's kind of a hard thing to understand and grasp. But essentially, you can try and guess at all these different herbs, but they may not work unless you have exactly the right one. So, okay, we should have talked about this a little bit in part one, but we'll get into it here in part two. How do you diagnose this? How do you know it's bacterial versus fungal? So two things. When we're talking about different gut issues, you can run a stool test that's going to measure all these different bacteria, fungus, parasites, all these different things, and you'll have a better idea that way. There's pros and cons to that, and we'll talk about those in other videos. But primarily what I'm using in office here is a technique called Systems Healthcare. Systems Healthcare utilizes manual muscle testing, a number of different neurological reflexes and patterns to basically figure out what's going on, what are these root causes, and is there an infection, and what type of infection, and that kind of thing. So that's something we do with that technique. And a little bit later on, I'll encourage you to work with a practitioner that's certified in that technique, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So SIBO, SIFO, you want to figure out what herbs are going to be needed. With bacterial infections, these four here, Astragalus, Malia, olive leaf, and Illicium, are just four of the more common ones that I'll see. And sometimes people need one of them, sometimes people need two. Really kind of depends on what's going on. I would say, I would say that those four are going to be definitely the more common ones. Now, like I said, there's so many other herbs out there, and there's so many other ones that can be really helpful. And so when it comes to herbs, I'm always hesitant to recommend people here online to try different herbs just because I know you can have reactions to them and side effects and things like that. So, you want to make sure that you're working with your natural practitioner, your functional medicine practitioner to really address these things. If it's fungal, if you got a fungal overgrowth, you'll find generally, again, 25 to 30 different herbs may be helpful. Astragalus is a common one, golden thread and golden seal. Both of these are berberines. Berberine, of course, is a berberine. And then you have things like Oregon grapefruit, which is also pretty common to see with things like fungus and parasites and so forth. Olive leaf and then Malia, guys, those are other common ones that I see with fungus and so forth. Now, one thing that you can use to differentiate if you might have a bacterial issue versus fungal is whenever you have fungal issues, you always have itchiness somewhere. You might have itchiness on your skin somewhere, on your abdomen. You'll usually have itchiness somewhere. Maybe it's even your scalp, and you'll have a lot of kind of dandruff and so forth. Oftentimes, if you look on the tongue, if you look at your tongue, you shine a light in there, you might see like a film on your tongue. It might be white, it might be yellow. Generally, if it's white, it's going to be more fungal, kind of like a candida type issue, which is fungus. If you see the yellow, then it might be more bacterial. Those are common, couple little differentiations there. And then one other thing that's coming to mind is if you have white spots kind of on your skin, that can be due to a number of things, but one thing you might notice is it's actually more prevalent when you're eating sugar and gluten, all these things, because it's somewhat related to some fungus stuff. So you might see a little bit of a correlation there. Same thing with the fungus and addressing those with herbs. Generally, you're going to have one or two that are going to be necessary to take care of the issue. Guys, as always, I always tell people with nutrients, if you're taking the right nutrients, it's going to work. And you're going to notice improvements usually within 1.5 to 2 weeks with herbs and infections. Okay, you shouldn't necessarily have to take a certain herb for weeks and months in order for it to do its job. Now, there may be different mechanisms and different ways that's helpful for you with things, but in our practice, when we can find the right herb that a patient needs, it works pretty immediately and takes care of the issue within 1.5 to 2 weeks. Every once in a while, with really stubborn infections, Lyme disease, EBV, other really stubborn chronic stuff, you can have 1 or 2 herbs needed here, and then within the next 1 to 2 weeks, another 1 to 2 herbs needed, kind of just depending on how difficult and kind of resistant and just challenging things are. Now, none of this, in all these talks, we haven't talked about biofilms yet. Biofilms are something we'll get into in other gut issues and cases, but biofilms are basically a sludge these infections can create to protect themselves. Now, in SIBO and SIFO, I don't see a lot of biofilm issues. Those are usually with chronic parasite infections, and every once in a while other nasty infections like a nasty heart infection, things like that. But nonetheless, that's maybe a little bit more for another time. As far as reversing the SIBO, SIFO, we want to look at diet, right? So a low FODMAP diet is a great thing to consider as far as this goes. FODMAPs are foods that can feed different bacteria and fungus. So generally, by following a low FODMAP diet, you're going to generally you're going to avoid these following things here. You're going to cut out all sugars. You're going to cut out gluten in breads. You're going to cut out some resistant starches, and then you'll cut out some fruit. And we'll talk about those resistant starches and fruits a little bit more here in a second. But that low FODMAP diet, guys, you can look that up online. There's so many different little handouts and sheets and so forth. I have one that I made for my patients. It's pretty straightforward and just kind of has a list of, hey, these are the foods that are high FODMAP. You want to avoid these. These are the foods that are low FODMAP. These are safe. These are the ones you want to focus on. But also, when I'm testing patients, I'm checking the specific things that are impacting these infections. So I might find that sugar is causing a little bit of an issue with things, but it's really fruit, because that's what they eat the most of, and we're testing, and fruit's causing the most issues. So I'll tell them, hey, I want you to cut out all fruit. Technically, in most low FODMAP diets, at least that I'm aware of, there's a list of fruit that is good, and then there's a list of fruit that you want to cut out and avoid. Those are the higher sugar fruits and that kind of thing. With fruit in general, I'll always check that on patients. I'll check resistant starches, right? Like your tapioca, potato, plantain, all those different things, and see if that's good. But essentially with this SIBO stuff, if you cut out gluten, if you cut out sugars, if you cut out obviously a lot of processed foods and things like that, dairy really should be on this list. I'm not sure how dairy got left off, but dairy is another common one. You cut out sugars, gluten, and dairy and resistant starches. You cut that out for 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's going to help these issues a ton. And then if you get the right herbs, you can totally reverse this stuff within 2 weeks, depending on kind of what's going on. 2 weeks is pretty common. Other things that's important to consider when you're reversing SIBO and SIFO, so detoxing aldehydes. Aldehydes are a byproduct that comes off of fungus and bacteria, and it's almost like one of the analogies I had heard once is it's like the smoke. and essentially you have to take out the smoke in order for you to be able to get to the infection. And so it's important that if this byproduct of aldehydes that comes off bacteria and fungus, if it's there toxifying your system, you need to detox it in order to help balance things out. Ammonia is also another common byproduct that can come off of these infections and overgrowths. So you want to detox the ammonia, and that's going to allow your body to really get after the infection as well. Improving gallbladder function and bile flow. Guys, I have other videos on this, but essentially you want to figure out, number one, is there something that's actually causing a lot of issues with the gallbladder? An estrogen dominance issue, an insulin resistance issue, or is it just your gallbladder needs more support? Different things like vitamin A, choline, beets, TMG, which is found in beets, a whole form vitamin C like camu berries. Those are a number of different things that can support the gallbladder function. So guys, in reversing SIBO and SIFO, all these things are important. You want to figure out what herbs are going to help and fix the issue. You want to figure out nutrition wise, you're going to need to make some diet changes there for roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Now, you also want to address some of these other factors and make sure to check for those as well. Now, fastest, best case scenario in my practice here, we've been able to basically reverse these SIBO, SIFO issues usually within 2 to 3 weeks. Now, it really depends, again, what all is going on. If someone has a lot of different health issues going on, we might have to address a couple other things first. But as far as addressing these different gut issues, we go after the bacteria or fungus. Maybe there's both. If there is, there's usually parasites somewhere close at hand as well, in which case we have to address those and so forth. So as far as reversing and addressing the SIBO, SIFO, 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops can really balance these things out. And then generally it's good to kind of follow the nutrition for a little bit longer and just kind of let the gut health build up. But guys, this is not something that should take months or years, and that's kind of my point with this. It's not something that should take a very long time at all to reverse and balance this out if done correctly. So let's see here. As far as gut maintenance, guys, now we've got the gut balanced. How do you keep the gut healthy, right? Because if you go back to those nutritional ways that you kind of were working in there, these gut issues can come back later down the road. So essentially, number one, how did the gut issue, the SIBO or SIFO, really come about in the first place is important. And then number two, it's really important to kind of consider other things that can step in and cause different gut issues. So number one, guys, we want to look at, I'm going to actually start on the right here. We want to look at nutrition, right? So in general, if you know that gluten and processed dairy is going to cause a lot of issues for your gut health, it's probably going to be best to limit those things. Remember, guys, in America, a lot of the gluten, a lot of the wheat products are not quite the same as in other countries. The quality is not quite the same. It's harder to digest, causes more inflammation, all these things. With processed dairy, remember, most dairy in stores, in our grocery stores, have been pasteurized. They've heated it up and they've killed off all kinds of bacteria, enzymes, all these things. Now, there's a good reason for them doing that. Otherwise, that milk could make us sick. And of course, the reason why is because the cows are sick, right? They're jacked up full of steroids and antibiotics and grains and all types of different things. But if you realize that, then you understand that most milk that's found in the stores is just really inflammatory. So you want to avoid those. You want to try to find a local source of raw milk. Find a good farm that really takes care of their cows. Find a farm that it has their cows out in the pasture, roaming, doesn't jack them up with steroids or antibiotics or jack them up full of grains, but really takes care of them. That milk, that raw milk, is going to be full of enzymes, full of good proteins. It's going to be very healthy and healing for the body. Guys, when it comes to whole foods, nutrition and whole foods, obviously whole foods in general is going to be huge. Avoiding processed stuff, eating foods that you have to cook and prepare and all those things. Variety is important because the more variety with your gut, the more variety with the food, the more variety with your gut, the different bacteria will grow in a healthy, good, balanced way. Quality is also extremely important. And so you want to make sure that you're not getting all kinds of processed foods and things like that. Make sure you're getting fresh, good, healthy, local stuff. You want to limit chemical exposure. Guys, if you know pesticides cause issues, you definitely don't want to be spraying that stuff, be around that stuff. If you live near or on a farm, I definitely encourage you to think about, number one, is there a lot of pesticide exposure? And if there is, I mean, over time, it's just going to kind of be wearing down your gut health. So obviously, you kind of have to think and consider, is it worthwhile staying here? Is it even an option to leave? I know that poses huge questions, but I think it's a conversation that's worthwhile. Medications, antibiotics, obviously you have to be careful with that. You can't just kind of keep taking those things, and not worry about your gut health, because eventually that can wear down your gut health. Other chemicals, you want to be cautious of chemical exposure in general. And then you got to manage your lifestyle, right? So stress, you want to be outdoors more so, be in the dirt, be exposed to germs. Guys, germs are healthy for us. I know we live in a world where germs are the worst thing in the world, and they're all going to make us sick. Guys, that's not true. And I've got other different videos talking about our immune system and so forth, but germs are actually one of the most important things when it comes to gut diversity. If we're not exposed to different things, if we're always sanitizing and we're always trying to kill germs, we're literally destroying our gut health. Our gut health is made up of hundreds and hundreds of millions of germs and bacteria and all these things. And we need to be exposed to these things to build up our system. The immune system, guys, is what's important in regards to getting sick, not being exposed to the bacteria. And if we have a strong immune system, it doesn't matter what we're exposed to. If we're around sick people, we're not going to get sick. All right, I digress. Pets and animals are great to be around just because of that, all the different bacteria, things that we can be exposed to there. And then obviously, your mood and your mind is always important. So make sure you guys don't forget that. The things that we think, the things that we say, all of those things have power to them. And if we're always in a negative mood, we're always thinking dark, negative things, that's going to impact our health. That's going to put us in this cycle. Whereas if we're always seeking the things that are good, that are excellent, that are pure, that's going to be healthy. That's going to be healing for our body. Guys, I thank you so much for joining me with this. I hope between part 1 and part 2, you've gotten an idea of what it looks like as far as SIBO and SIFO, the different things that impact it and can cause it and make it worse, but then also different things that you can do and need to consider and understand in order to address these things. Now, I always recommend working with a natural practitioner, a natural provider. I'm a big fan of, I'll go back to that in a second. I'm a big fan of systems healthcare. That's the technique that I do in practice. There's about 20 different certified practitioners across the country that do it. I usually have a link in the description that you can find one near you. But I'd encourage you to work with someone there, if not someone that's doing functional medicine, and that will be able to really look at things holistically and get to the bottom of things. If you are unable to see a provider, or there's something going on and you're just wanting to try these things out for yourself, I would most definitely recommend starting the nutritional changes, guys. That's going to be important regardless, and then I think the herbs are really, really important, but you have to be careful with it. You have to know that if you take something and it starts causing you issues, you want to stop those herbs immediately, and of course you want to try to make sure you're finding things that are working. So one of the big things I talk about when it comes to supplements and herbs and all these things is you shouldn't have any side effects. Now, you start taking something, your left pinky toe tingles for a couple hours and then it goes away. Okay, sometimes weird stuff like that happens. I'm being a little bit, facetious here, but sometimes that stuff happens. But, I'm comparing that to you take an herb and all of a sudden like a rash starts breaking out on your hand and it doesn't go away after a day or two or anything like that. That's when an herb is causing issues. And so you want to watch out for that stuff and make sure you're keeping all those things in mind. So guys, thanks for joining us. You can find us online here at our different social medias. You can visit our schedule and book a free consultation with myself, or your free appointment, book your first appointment, not your free appointment. Guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that this has been beneficial for you. Check out our other videos on gut health, hormones, thyroid, mood, anxiety, literally anything and everything in regards to natural health. All the things I see in my practice every single day, I'm trying to make content and videos about it so that you guys can learn and grow in your health. And again, all these videos are free, guys. I hope you enjoy these. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.